Hello and welcome to my channel. Here I review movies and today's film is called The Convert. It's a historical drama about a British priest moving to New Zealand in the 1800s to start a church. The story was written by Lee Tamahori, Michael Bennett, and Shane Danielson. Lee Tamahori directed the film, which stars Guy Pearce as the priest, Tioriori Ngatai Melbourne as the woman, Antonio Te Meoha as the king, and Lawrence Makoare as the warlord. For positives, this film has a decent cast with a few good performances, a clear and visually stunning journey, and a little bit of music to back up the story. It takes place in New Zealand during the 1800s and follows Thomas Munro, a priest from England. He's on his way to a settlement when a storm destroys part of his ship. While repairing on a nearby island, he witnesses a slaughter between Māori tribes. Hoping to stop the bloodshed, he trades his horse for Rangamai, a young Maori woman, and takes her with him to the settlement. Along the way, we get clear shots of beautiful natural landscapes and of their ship sailing the ocean. Munro and Rangamai spend a bit of time exchanging culture with the white settlers of New Zealand, and then the story prompts them to visit the two warring tribes. We get more beautiful shots of nature that are filled with vivid color and highly contrasting shots of Munro against the landscape. For standout visuals, you had several battle sequences that really captured the horror, fear, and bloodlust that the people involved felt. There isn't much gore, but there are a lot of on-screen kills. They also had non-stop scenery that would blow you away. Mountaintops covered in clouds, rolling ocean waves with a clear horizon, and waterfalls. There was so much beautiful nature in this film that it almost felt like a Planet Earth video. The cast puts on a lot of one-note stereotype performances to tell the story, with a few big emotional moments coming from Guy Pearce and Tioriori Ngatai Melbourne. There's some racist white settlers, violent warring tribesmen, and even a few greedy merchants. Guy Pearce's Munro is a priest with a sordid past that wants to make a better world. When he's asked to explain the pictures in his diary, Pearce gives a fantastic performance in which he relays a man's worst memories to an audience. Pearce played it in a heartbreaking manner. Tioriori Ngatai Melbourne plays a young woman, Rangamai, in mourning after the death of her husband. During the film, Ngatai Melbourne gets to do a few big emotional outbursts as well as some big speeches. She puts in a lot of energy and puts on big, powerful displays of emotion. Sound-wise, the film uses a few simple instrumental tracks to try and add a bit of atmosphere to the film. Through stringed instruments and a bit of piano, they managed to give the movie a melancholic and slightly tragic sound. Which brings me to my negatives. The story is boring and nonsensical, the cast doesn't get enough opportunities to stand out, and the soundtrack is ineffective and generic. Starting with the story, it takes forever to unfold and constantly gets lost in side stories. There was a whole murder side plot that went nowhere, and a little love story between Munro and Charlotte. It all distracts from the main storyline and doesn't add anything but eye-roll moments to the film. Despite trying to cram in a bunch of side stories, very little actually happens in the film. There's two smaller skirmishes that are over in a minute each, and one bigger battle at the end. Aside from that, there is a little bit of drama in the town, but not much else. They also failed to develop Munro, Rangamai, and the warring chiefs, so you don't care that much about the outcome of the war. There's even a few incredible holes in the story, like how Munro approached a village without being seen or seeing anyone. The battle at the end was also a little bit disappointing in how it played out. They set the stage like it was an uphill battle, but it ended up being a one-sided slaughter. With little for the cast to do, there are no real standout performances. Like I said earlier, Pearce and Ngatai Melbourne got to do some big moments, but neither of their characters is memorable in any way. The two chiefs do an incredible job of their roles, but we don't spend enough time with either of them to really form much of an opinion on them. They each get to do a big speech and a haka, but that's about it. The soundtrack does add a little bit of atmosphere to the film, but it doesn't do anything else, and there aren't many tracks. It doesn't follow the emotional journey all that well, and the tracks are so simple they can barely be called complete. There are a series of drawn-out notes played as quiet as a mouse that are often buried under the ambient noise from the environment. They aren't memorable, and half the time you won't notice them at all. Personally, I found the visuals in this film to be quite beautiful, but the story was so boring that I was ready to tap out about halfway through. Ironically, the story picks up quite a bit during the climax, but it was too little too late. The cast did a good job, but the story needs to be trimmed down before the overall experience is enjoyable. It's just too long and slow. If you don't mind slow historical dramas with a lot of culture in them, give it a try. Otherwise, pass on by. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 4 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.